works. Hello, everyone. It's 5 o'clock according to my Windows phone. That means it's go time. To get started, though, if you have a Windows phone, can you hold it up? All right. If you have an iPhone, raise your hand. All right, cool. I used to have an iPhone, too. If you're a Windows Phone developer, hands. OK. And for the rest of you, if you're excited about SharePoint, you're in the wrong room. Earlier, there was a SharePoint session in here that was actually a Windows Phone session. And I use SharePoint, but know nothing about it. So I hope you're here to learn about the phone. In my day job, I work at Microsoft in Redmond on the Windows Phone team. I used to work on ASP.NET, which is an interesting technology I won't be talking about. I used to work on the Silverlight team. And my part now in Silverlight has moved into the Silverlight Windows Phone world. So in my day job, I've done crazy things. If you do know about Windows Phone, there's a control called the pivot. I wrote that, so you can direct your hate at me whenever it crashes. Because if you set the selected index and it's not loaded yet, it crashes, and that's a bug I made. Because, yeah. So, I mean, the sad thing is, at Microsoft, we write software, and software has bugs. And that one just upsets me because in my own apps, I hit this one a lot. So I've learned a lot. Of course, so that's like my day job. And in this talk, I'm kind of not in my day job position. I'm actually an independent developer, I suppose. So Microsoft said, hey, we're going to do something kind of crazy, and we're not going to sue you if you build your own Windows Phone apps in your own time. Now, that doesn't mean like sitting at work, while you're supposed to be doing actual work, like writing bugs for Windows Phone. That means actually like at home and whatever else. So I wrote an app called Fourth and Mayor. And I swear I'm not trying to promote the app, but I can't really show you the source code to the other apps I've worked with. So they'd be kind of angry as well. But this year I've worked with everyone from Netflix to the Facebook guys, pretty much everyone on the platform, and kind of worked with them to write the best apps they can. So this is the icon. It's horrible. If you're a designer, I will pay you to build me a better one. But I have had something like 33,000 downloads. I guess 33,500 when I updated the slides. Over 9 million pages, and being actual XAML pages, have been recorded, according to analytics, and 2 million check-ins to a service called Foursquare. Foursquare, it's not that exciting. Mostly men aged like 20 to 25 use it. They check into bars, and then their mates, as you call them here, they're like, hey, I'm at the bar, let's go have a beer. But it's a cool service. I love Foursquare. It's kind of a cool way when you go to a new city, you can find what's in the area. And when I started working on this app back in December, the one that was on the phone was pretty bad. So I said, hey, I'm going to write my own, and that was kind of the history. If you can figure out what the naming, how I picked the name, there's nothing fancy about it, but it doesn't infringe on anyone's trademark because it doesn't say Foursquare. That's the story there. This is kind of what it looks like. I had to show you this one because I am the mayor of Boca Kitchen and Bar in Seattle. So you can find me there most any night probably because I check in there a lot. I'm mostly just testing my app, of course. That works. But it looks pretty decent. I'm a developer by trade. I'm not one of the turtleneck designer guys. But I do like to throw on a turtleneck sometimes and do design work. So something you can see here is that there's beautiful alignment on the left, not looking at the map. And no offense, but a lot of people in this room mess this up. So this is kind of a little pet peeve of mine. I'll talk about it later, but 12 pixels is the magic number. And often you'll see the top is up here. It looks beautiful. And then, bam, 12 pixels over is the rest of the content. And that's just a developer bug. You can fix it. It's really easy. You just add 12 to the margin. Yeah, most of us can count. We're geeks. So anyway, I kind of want to show you crazy things that I did. If you came here hoping to see file a new project and then me write the app, I'm not going to do that because I don't have that many hours. And it's really not that exciting. Building apps, we've all done it. What this is, though, is it's kind of representative of what you should do, some best practices maybe, and then all the crazy things that we don't give you in the default projects or controls that you kind of might need. So this is kind of a list of what I'd like to talk about. I've gone all sorts of ways on this one. I tried to give this talk in New Zealand, and my Visual Studio wouldn't work. At which point, hey, it was a Microsoft demo. But today, I'm happy to show you. I can Alt-Tab, and somewhere in here is Visual Studio. So we can actually look at code today. I'm going to leave some time at the end. If you have specific questions, you want me to point out parts of the app, parts of the source code, all that cool stuff, no worries. So, what the heck did I do? I was kind of sitting on Christmas break back in December, and I hated the app that was there. It just didn't have all the features that the iPhone app had. And so I kind of started coding that whole week against Foursquare's API. They're really open, like a lot of the .NET guys, they just are really open to like exposing their APIs. So, it's public, anyone can use it. And I think one problem with, of course, kind of trying to build an app is most services actually aren't open. So if you're one of the guys that's scraping like a weather service or doing something like that, you're doing it wrong, and somebody's going to yell at you. So find a service to start out with that you can actually publicly access or talk to the company. That's kind of actually an important step if you don't like to be in jail. But literally, I spent a week developing it over this break. It was kind of fun. I learned a lot. At Microsoft, we work on the platform. Oh, sorry, this is the Microsoft me now. So we work on the platform, and our job is, hey, Jeff, how's the pivot control? There's a crash in the button. Can you fix it? It's not that exciting. So it was really nice for me to step out of that and say, hey, I'm going to build something in the platform. And I cried a little bit because it turns out we got bugs, and sometimes you just don't know how to do something naturally. So I've done a ton of check-ins. I've iterated the code. I actually send people source code from it all the time if they ask me because people are interested. Hey, Jeff, how do you do this or that? Someday I'll open source it. The code's horrible, and then people know how bad I am at coding. Anyway, JSON P is what kind of powers the service now. And this literally happened in the middle of my coding sprint at home. Foursquare's like, hey, we're actually removing the V1 API, and we're moving to V2. It's completely different. Update your app sooner, it'll stop working. And so I was really sad. And it only took me actually a couple hours to update it. I was surprised. C# is actually a great language compared to Objective-C. It's just beautiful, actually. And yeah, you guys, those are the iPhone guys. Anyway, I did those updates, and it was pretty quick. But I learned a lot along the process. If you know anything about Silverlight, if you have like a server error, you get an error code 500, you actually don't learn that. All it says is not found. It's kind of a horrible bug, but it's kind of how the platform's built. So I use JSON-P, which actually gives you the HTTP response inside the JSON. So if you can hit a JSON-P service, you actually learn a lot more about what's happening. These are some of the tools I use. You guys know how to use these tools. But I will show you in my Git enlistment right here, I've done a lot of check-ins. I've been really good about this. If you're not using source control, you're doing it wrong. But you're all professionals, so I'm sure you're already there. But it's just amazing to go back and here back in December, the bugs I was working on were so incremental but small. It's like code cleanup. That's a good thing to do, right? I added some tilt things, fixing crashes. Bless you. And if you go all the way up here, like some of the changes I started making were really, really big, like refactoring code. And I'm not going to open these, but one of the things you'll see is every time that I release to the marketplace, I snap my source. And that's super important if you want to test upgrades in Windows Phone. We don't actually have a way in Visual Studio to say give an upgrade from version 2.4 to 2.5. You have to actually sync your enlistment, hit F5, sync it without rebuilding your project. Just iteratively build it, and then hit F5. And it's a pain. It's horrible, and we're aware of that. We're going to make it better, but I learned that little trick thanks to source control. I can sync back and do that. Now, if you look at the actual source for this app, I've got a lot of projects. Most people just have one little project. It's their main app, and then they have the rest. See, there's the guy here. This guy's in the media. We're supposed to watch out for them. But it's OK to take pictures of the source because my app's actually open source. It's called Fourth.Mango right now, is my primary project. And it builds out into, of course, my images. I've got some views and pages and converters. It's all in one place, but I've separated the model like a good coder should do. And so I have a ton of data objects in a different project, different assembly. And of course, there's all these little, blah, blah, blah assembly, the about page assembly. I've done a good job, and every week I actually pull out a new assembly right now. One of the quickest ways to improve your startup time is actually to move things that you're not using into a completely different project, and then just reference it when you need it. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them that, but I've seen people doing this recently, and you can really, really improve your startup time. And the reason that is every time the CLR loads an assembly, we first have to validate the hash in terms of a security standpoint. We read every byte of the assembly, and then we have to give it to the CLR, which then reads every byte of the assembly. So if you've got like, a 3 meg assembly, we're reading it twice, that's pretty bad when you could just be reading 100K. So what you can see is if I open up one of these like place projects, it's just XAML. There's just 6 little pages in there, but that's 6 pages that we're not loading at startup time in terms of the actual bytes in the IL. But what I want to show you here is kind of how do you do actual navigation properly. A lot of people in their apps, they hack this around a little bit. They'll have a ton of stuff in some global instance, and recreating that the right way is actually kind of a challenge. So if I just open up, let's see something. Yeah, a venue page. That's actually the most complex page in the app. It's a horrible idea. If I open up the comment page, this is a pretty slick, pretty basic one. I can come in here in the navigated to field, and it's pretty basic. I'm restoring some tombstoning values. Whew, this resolution is awesome. It's like 1990. Yeah, all the guys in purple shirts know exactly what I'm talking about. So what I'm doing right here is just grabbing out of the navigation service, I want to get the ID for the check-in. And that's the only thing that matters in this page. It's kind of like if you're going to a user page, what's the user ID? What's the important thing that is going to kind of differentiate what's in the content? And all I'm doing is grabbing the value. I'm setting the data context. You could do some view model stuff in there, but I just set it directly to kind of the system that loads in all my data automatically. And this is way simpler than some people that have like XML coming in and all this crazy code, because data binding works after this one line is run. And for a talk like this, it's kind of, I can't step you through all the code, but literally that one line, it's going to go back. It might hit Foursquare. It might hit a local cache. Whatever it does, it's going to come back, and I'm going to have a fully hydrated object called detailed check-in. And whew, not much in detailed check-in. Really, there's comments, there's photos, and then there's a check-in object there. But the nice thing is this all happens kind of behind the scenes. So you get this whole list of data magically without anything happening. And I'll jump into that a little bit later. But again, navigation service, if you have a single page like this, you can do magical things. So if I run the app, I should have signed in ahead of time. I agree. Conference Wi-Fi. This is an OAuth 2 login, by the way. So I can go ahead, sign in. Since you're watching, I hope that's right. Uh-oh. All right, J is the first one. That worked. Okay. I hope that worked. Oh. I think that's a bug. All right, well, let me see here. I'm going to change that password soon. All right, we're authenticating. This is exciting. Cool, the app is now running. That's a good thing. And I'm currently checked in right here. There's a lot of you checked in, but if I hit this little plus sign here, it's actually going to that comments page in the background right now. And it sends the single check-in ID, so that associates where I am and the place I'm at. That's all the data that's there. And again, it's really simple. If I tombstone the app, hit the start button, at this point in Windows Phone 7, it would kind of be pulled down, pulled away. I hit back, and the only thing that comes into the app is, of course, the URI. Navigation service properly navigates to the page. And this data here actually didn't hit Foursquare again. It hit a local cache, which is done by a framework called AGFX. And so the nice thing is it's really quick. A lot of apps, you hit back on like a Twitter client, and then you sit there for 6 seconds while it's downloading the data once again. This framework that's here, it's one line of code. You call this little data manager, and it says, hey, it's actually pretty fresh data. Let's just load it right back up. And I'll show you that in a bit. But it's really nice because, well, there's actually lots of things you can do when the only piece of data is the URI. So TechEd. Somebody created this. There's a mayor. Ooh. All right, I've got a breakpoint there. That's exciting. I'm trying to make a new update to the app here. But 7 people are currently here. That's cool. Kyle is the mayor. He probably started checking in last week. And there's some photos. Cool, this is all in Foursquare. Of course, my app doesn't actually manage this information. I'm at the whims of Foursquare, but down here, I have a little pin button. And pinning is a feature that's in Mango. The cool thing here is I've hacked it around. This is my independent self, not Microsoft Jeff. And if you have Mango, I add this little feature where you can pin places to the start screen. And so you pop in, and now if you want to come into TechEd and check in really quick, you just touch that. And it randomly picks one of the pictures that's been taken. It's a really nice experience because now I just touch TechEd. It skips the main page. It skips having to find the place I want to check in. All right, it eventually works. And it comes straight into the place that you want to check into. And so for people that use my app a lot, this is going to save them 10 seconds. They'll be happier. They'll give me better reviews, better ratings. And the nice thing is, again, there's no magical data being passed. It's just the URI. So not to harp on that too much, but features like this just work when you use the navigation service the proper way. Some people do crazy things. They start like managing their backstack. They'll try to skip around on pages they're going to. And when you do that, all of a sudden you can't add this kind of nice feature because you have a whole lot more going on than just URI. So that's navigation service. Building a solution to many assemblies. You've seen that. I have a lot of assemblies. So if you look at the things in here, there's the Windows Phone SDK. That's where I'm using Pivot, the control I wrote, sorry. It's also the Silverlight for Windows Phone Toolkit. It's actually, again, in my day job, I work on that team. And we recently released a new version, adding more controls and stuff. But I figured, hey, why recreate that stuff? If I can grab some open source project, as an independent developer, it's easy. If you work for a corporation, it takes you probably 6 months to get approval to use any of these things. But once you do, it's really a good way to save time. The JSON.NET library is what I use for reading JSON. And it's quicker than the Microsoft solution in 7.0. So if you're using JSON, there's some data contract serializer that's built in. And in 7, it's kind of slow. This is faster. But in Mango, we fixed that. So again, today, I'm using this third-party one. Hopefully, once we get completely Mango moved over, I'm just going to use the Microsoft stuff for my employer to smile a little bit. AGFX is the data framework. And it was actually written by one of the architects that has worked quite a bit on the Silverlight Toolkit and the Silverlight team, Sean Burke. And it's a really cool way to, again, cache data and to kind of put this intermediate piece between web requests, the isolated storage, and your data. And so in apps, I've seen Flickr apps built using this. It really helped me save a lot of time. I'd really recommend that you kind of check it out if you're doing anything where you want to cache your data locally. It's a really cool way of just saving time, really. I'm also using Big Maps control and a ton of libraries, things that I built myself, which I'm happy to share with people. Now, of course, we can assume at this point you built your app. You have all the exciting pages you need. You have all the data that's happening. And these are things that I found that are not in the framework. They're not in the default project. But they really add a ton of value to my app. So the first thing is update detection. So I'm not completely doing this as you might think. But a lot of times you start an iPhone app up. Again, lots of people at iPhones. So you start an iPhone app, and it's like, hey, you've updated to version 2.4. Here's the new features you can enjoy. And I think that really adds a lot to the value of an app. If you don't have that, people start up an update. They're like, OK, I wonder what's new. Why'd I update? It's kind of an unknown. So the way I do this is every time you run, I track the last known version you ran inside isolated storage. And if there's a new version, I say, oh, cool. Let's let them know what's new. So if you look at this code, it's super simple, except for when the font size is so big. I have an app settings object. This just stores whatever I want in isolated storage. And in here, there's a last run version. Really simple. It's just a string value. I do a string comparison. And if it's different, in my main page, somewhere in here, checked, yeah. So here's the version check. So I'm going to get the current app version. And as long as the string's not null, the last run version's not equal to the current version, I go ahead and I save the new value, make sure I'm tracking that. And then I'm going to use the navigation service to navigate into a different assembly. And so this is something where I don't want to pollute every single time that you run the app with something crazy. So I moved this little update experience into an assembly called About. And it's just a page called Updated Version Information. So if I move over to that, here's updated version information. It's really simple. And what it's actually doing is it's downloading from the cloud a little change log I have. So if I log into the server, I can change at real time kind of the list of stuff. Let me go to that code. Right here I have a little XAML control. So XAML URI, it's based on the current version on the 4th and Mayer website I run. And then it just kind of loads that XAML in real time, plops up there, and then the person gets this nice update experience. And that's something that really adds value to your app, because then people are like, hey, okay, cool, new features, I'm glad I upgraded. Without that, people are just kind of confused and may wonder why they wasted the time, use the data to update. The next one is crash detection. If you've written Windows Phone apps, a lot of times people will complain about crashes that you have no idea about. Like, I can sit here for 20 minutes, works on my machine, I'm an awesome developer, never crashes, tell the user, I just can't help you, I'm sorry. Well, that's a horrible answer. And the trick here is you want to find a way to store good crashes and have the user send them to you. So there's a component this Microsoft guy wrote called Little Watson. And somewhere in this file, it's a lot of helper code, isn't it? Little Watson. So Little Watson was written by a guy called Andy Pennell. And this is kind of based on his code. If you just Bing for Little Watson, it should pop right up. And literally it just stores in isolated storage any crash information. The next time you run the app, it's like, hey, do you want to let the developer know about the crash? And then they email it to me. And it stores a ton of data. If you look at it, it's using a string builder. It's storing the crash data, information about what build you're using, the kind of phone you have. And this stuff's really important as a developer for me to look at. So now if I pop over to my email box, this here are crash reports I've received from users today. Well, yeah. How exciting is that? So typically I try to be pretty good, but here I get the full exception message. I have the version they're using, a whole stack trace, and then data. Here's the phone they're using. They're using an HTC HD7. The pages they were navigating to, their memory use, the culture. This stuff is like really important as a developer. I can fix bugs so quick, just minutes after looking at one of these. And without using Little Watson, I would have no idea how to fix a lot of this stuff. So you can add this to your app like really quick. It's a couple lines of code, and it just makes the experience a lot better because my goal is someday to check here and not have any crashes. We'll see if I get there. I think one thing to look at is in the first line I have this version information, and there's people running like 10 versions ago of my app still. They're running version 1.1, they're running 2.2. And these people, it's really a tough experience because they don't know there's an update to my app. They have no clue. For whatever reason, they have chosen not to update, or they haven't looked at the marketplace recently. And so they're having kind of a really bad experience. It's crashing for them. And so this way, at least I can respond. I can be like, hey man, update, please. And it's nice because, again, at least I know what version they're running. I can help them with that. But one of the things I want to do in the future is at least try to look and kind of ping my server daily and be like, hey, what's the latest version you should be on? And if you're not, I want to give them like a message box to help them a little bit more. Web Request Factory, that is so not exciting. I'm not going to bore you too much, but Foursquare requires, in my case, that I have a user string. The user agent needs to be specific to what version I'm using and the emulator type. And so I have something hanging off of my app object that lets me create new web requests that are automatically set up with the header. It's just a nice little trick to centralize all the code. And it also means that I can do my own little profiling. I can track what time a web request starts and ends and see how long it took to happen. And it's just nice. It's one little simple place. Happy to share the code. Now, the review nag, I got this one from some good friends that have one of the top iPhone apps out there. And this single trick, I think, is what actually made me be the top-rated app on the marketplace for like months at a time. It's really amazing. I've had like 4,000 reviews at this point. And most apps out there, they have nowhere near this attach rate. For so few downloads of just over 30,000, a lot of people have chosen to review the app. And the reason is because I'm annoying. Yeah. If you've ever used the app, I think about 15 times in, I pop up a little thing. It's like, hey, you seem to be liking this. You should review the app. And yeah, it actually works. There's choices there. I give them one that says, yes, I'd love to review it. Another one says, not now. And then I have a checkbox that says, don't ask me again. And the UI might be a little bit weird, but the important thing is you can silence me right away. I'll never bug you again. I just store that preference in isolated storage. But if you hit yes, that's great. The reason is most people run apps apparently once. And this is someone that's run my app 15 times. So chances are they actually like it. They're not going to be like, oh, 1 star, Jeff, you suck. I mean, maybe they are. Don't get me wrong. But they might be like, oh, 5 stars. This app rocks. I'm really enjoying it. And so this little review nag it does suck for users. I'm sorry. But it's a really cheap and easy way to really kind of boost my ratings because I know you're actually enjoying the app, hopefully. And I can show you some of that code. It's really simple. I mean, this is like CS 101. Like, I could have done this years ago. It's if statements. But, it's important little stuff. So if I move into my Foursquare app, in here I have a method for when I'm starting up. It's called startup. Yeah, just walk you through, I guess. I'm setting up an analytics engine. I grab their settings. I do some debugger goo. And then I get the information on what version they're using. I guess that's exciting. It looks like here, though, I don't do the review nag. So I'm going to try another file in my main page. I swear I wrote this code. In here, so right there it is. So I only want to make sure, of course, that's Tiny Watson. Nag experience is okay. Yeah. So it's called evaluate whether to nag for review. I name things like it is. So I can click into there, and you can, again, code makes sense. It's saying, hey, is this the time that I should ask? Based on how many times have you run the app, which is something I store as the use count, should I nag? And if the answer is yes, cool, great. In 1 second, I bug you with the review nag experience. And what is that? It's a special message box that I built. The default one doesn't let you have a checkbox, but it says, hey, you're enjoying it, care to review, yes, no, blah. Again, really simple code. I store your preferences. And if you say, yes, I'd like to review it, we've all seen this code before. I just new up the marketplace review task. You call show. It takes you out of the app into the review experience. It's pretty quick and easy. And hopefully they give me good reviews. So now that you know my secret, everyone's going to have good reviews. And I'll no longer be awesome on the top of the marketplace. But you guys know how it is. You get your 15 minutes, I guess. Navigation-based analytics is pretty cool. How many of you are using preemptive analytics? Nobody. Me neither. Anyone using any other analytics engine? Yeah, they're okay, cool. So you guys actually know who's using your app. Yeah, is that good? Is that useful? Very useful. So the rest of you guys, you're just blind. You have no idea. Like, is anyone actually using your app? If you spend 16 hours this weekend updating your game, it's kind of cool if it updates, but if nobody's using it, you just wasted 16 hours. So I can show you, I'm using Google Analytics. Sorry to my employer again, but hey, it's my free time. I can go ahead over the Google site somewhere. Google Analytics, pretty basic. And I'm tracking all your navigations that you do if you opt into it. And so what I can see here is the most popular thing people do, of course, is they look at places. Something like 2.5 million in this set have looked at a venue. And there's been 1.5 million check-ins that this one's tracked. And, okay, 1.1 apps launches where they actually go to the main page. But I look here, and gosh, there's some stuff that's just less popular. This is the first 10 things I can page in. And I think if I go way to the end, let me show some more rows. Loading. Yeah, there's some venue stuff, people signing in. Okay, cool. The About page. Yeah, that's cool. That's exciting. So based on this, there have been 14,000 people that have viewed my awesome About page. They've gone there. They've seen that Jeff Wilcox wrote this. They're like, this guy's awesome. I should send him money or something. Nobody's done it, basically. Compared to the millions, people don't look at that. And so this is one of the pages that I moved out of the main assembly. I put it in another one because it's like, okay, I need to have an About page. The marketplace requires that you tell them some information about the version and support. But I shouldn't waste people's time with it, because most of the time nobody uses it. And this is really important because if I'm looking at bug reports, I'd rather pick something in the first 2 or 3 pages than this stuff down here that no one ever really uses. So analytics helps me quite a bit there. It's pretty cool to see like where in the world people are coming from. Location, maybe? I think this is the map. Okay, they're coming from the United States. That's really cool. It's kind of hard to see, but actually they are coming from all over the world. There is a little bit of coloring in there, but clearly I've thought about localizing. I'm going to do it, but the United States is where people use Fourth and Mayer. Over here, we do have some coloring. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, the one or two guys in the room, thanks. That's really cool. But you can kind of do this over time, see if there's changes in it. And I think this is important because localization is pretty expensive. Without this data, I might be like, oh, okay, I'm going to localize in 30 languages. I'm going to make $1 million. It wouldn't be worth it because, you know, in terms of usage, it's just not that many people use it elsewhere. I should note, I have no business model. I've made $0 because I'm awesome. This is a true story. I went to submit to the marketplace and I made it free. And it turns out you can do that, but you can also charge people for it. So I'd highly recommend that you consider maybe charging people. For me, it's just fun. It's kind of like a hobby on the side, and thankfully I do have the day job, so I don't worry too much, but I don't make money on this. And so, you know, it's just kind of a hobby, and it's okay to have hobbies, I guess, even if it's what you do during the day. Whew. I live in Seattle. We have cool things. We have kayaking and, you know, mountain biking, and I write code. It's kind of sad. Anyway, other stuff, push notifications. If anyone, actually, is anyone using my app? It's okay if you aren't. Yeah, okay, there's a couple. Well, not at this moment, because, okay, well, good. All right, cool. Has it crashed? All right, cool, excellent. There's no push notifications in my app because before Mango, there's some issues with it. I know the Microsoft guys say it works great, but if you talk to a lot of developers, there are issues. I've talked to like Thomas and some guys on the team, and they made it a lot better for Mango. So I've said, okay, I'm doing all the work for push notifications right now. So I have a whole cloud service that's running. I'm computing push notifications to send you. I just don't send it to your system yet. And I'm just waiting for Mango because I hear they're going to be a lot more robust. So it's really nice because even though I'm doing this in the background, I can see what my server load is based on how many users I have, you know, how many Amazon instances I need to like new up for this. It's really pretty cool. That said, someday I'm going to turn on push notifications, and I'm completely ready. So don't be afraid to like, you know, prep yourself ahead of time. Push out an update where you do everything you need for push. Just don't actually send them pushes. It's kind of crazy. Something to think about. Some other things I've done is inside the app, there's lots of web requests. You know, if you're going to a page, I'll have kind of a progress bar at the top. You know, ... I'm loading something. You go somewhere else, you have those same dots. And I used to be the progress bar king, but in Mango, you no longer need to use my progress bar, which is kind of cool. But the key thing here is I have a single progress bar in the frame of the page, in the frame of the app. And so instead of having to have a progress bar in every single page, I just have a single one, and then I globally hook up. So if there's 5 different web requests happening, I just have a single progress bar. I wait for all 5 to be done, and then it goes to false. It's really nice because it makes the app more efficient. I don't have a ton of these progress bar instances, and it's just slick to do it that way. And I don't need to show you the code unless you really wanted to see it. It's a couple if statements again. But you just do it in the frame level, and it just saves a lot of time having to worry about every page you hook up, you know, setting up a progress system. Other things I've done, in 7.0, there are some performance issues with pop-ups. And so I don't have a single pop-up in my app. I actually just overlay them on top of the frame. It's some hackery there. I guess I have enough time in my hobby to spend writing that stuff. But if you ever see that you want to have a lot of pop-ups in an app, it's a lot more efficient for 7.0 apps to put them in the frame instead. Little trick, I suppose. And the other thing I've done is I re-implemented the page transitions that were in the toolkit. And so if you ever saw a lot of apps in the 7.0 marketplace, you'll touch like a hyperlink button, and then it's like 500 milliseconds before it flips over to a new page. And it's kind of a jarring experience because someone might touch it a couple times. They're like, hey, like, you know, is it going to navigate? It's going to navigate, and then it crashes. This is something I wanted to fix. And so I kind of reworked how transitions work. And thank you to my users, because that's something that actually I've pushed back to the team to see about changing as well. And the new toolkit has that fix. But the instant you touch something, it immediately navigates away, and then it transitions in. And so that's kind of a cool thing where my users were great beta testers, and they got crash reports for me. And it's something where having a user base is kind of cool to see, you know, what crashes do I get. That's in there, and I brought that back to the community. I've had some horrible bugs too. I'm an awesome developer some days, and some days really bad, apparently. The first thing is working with the ingestion requirements. And I've been failed twice since working on the app, which I think is not too bad. Before version 1, I failed it once for some stupid little bug. I had my friends together. We had a couple beers, and I said, hey, help me find all the bugs in 4th and Mayer. And so one of my friends is like, okay, this is a weird one. You sign in, then you sign out, and then sign back in, and it crashes. I'm like, okay, that's cool, Eric, but no, they're never going to find that. Microsoft's not going to find that. What do you know? 2 days later, I get a fail notice. It's like if you sign in, sign out, and sign in, it crashes. So I was kind of angry, but the marketplace guys are pretty thorough. That's what it taught me, and that was the first time I failed. The second time I failed was working on version 2. It turns out the marketplace team had gotten much better. And so, I learned. This is my failure notice. This is from, does it have a date? It's from March. So this is version 1.2, and I failed these different test plans. If you've never seen one of these failure reports, good for you. That's awesome. I think they've changed since this one, but the important thing to see is actually it's a pretty good report. So like the first one I failed was for reliability. Crap, I was crashing. So they tell you here, here's what should happen. Here's the requirement from Microsoft. And then down here, it actually tells you exactly in the app how to repro it, which I was surprised. I wasn't actually expecting this, but it terminates unexpectedly when you go to any place and select the map. Really good information, actually, because this was a bug in my app. And I think what's interesting is, if you look down here, the error existed in the previous version and was missed. So those marketplace guys took the time. They're like, oh, man, he crashed 5 out of 5 times. Let's see if he's a bad coder and had it in there before. And so they load up the previous version, and heck, yeah, it crashed as well. So I think that's really nice. What it tells me is that the marketplace team's pretty serious about trying to prevent these bugs. And it really helped me as a developer because I know that this wasn't my latest set of changes. If I'm looking in the source control, I'm just pulling my hair out, the hair I have left. And what I can see is like, heck, it wasn't those 5 changes. It must have been before because it was in the previous version. So really helpful information, actually. And then I think I had some other stuff where like my network requests, it would kind of fail, but I just ignore the exception. And so my UI would say loading, ... It failed, and it would sit loading for, if you sat there 10 minutes or forever. And so it was kind of a bad experience. It violated the marketplace policies. And it took me weeks, actually, to find the right fix in my code to do it. But really helpful information, but painful working with the marketplace. But I'm glad they did it, because in Android, you hit upload, and then it's out there, and it's a different world. The what's new bug was kind of an interesting experience. I was a great coder, and I followed Foursquare's web service requirements to the T. And they said, if you get a notification JSON piece, you must immediately display the notification. I was like, okay, I'll write that code. If notification, go to my notification page. And at the top it says, what's new? Well, Foursquare had a little bit of a change, and they forgot to tell people about it. And they decided to start sending notifications with every single request. So you can imagine, I'd say, oh, I want to get the list of where your friends are. Bam, here's a notification. Okay, I navigate to the notification page. And then I'm going to refresh the list of what friend requested. Bam, what's new page. Kind of a bad time, really bad time. And what I learned about this, though, is there's actually not much I can do. I could delete the app from the marketplace. I'd lose my reviews, my ratings. I could, scream. I screamed on Twitter. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry about the bug, guys, but I can't fix it right away because I have to go through the marketplace ingestion process. And this is kind of scary as a developer because there's a bug. People are really hating it. I got some horrible reviews. And what I didn't have was a kill bit. And I still don't have one. I need to spend the time. But I think what I need is somewhere up in my cloud, I need to have a file that says, for version 2.7, there's just a kill bit file. If you find it, tell the user there's something horribly wrong, or maybe display the message. And at least they have some idea. Because people were hitting this bug. There's nothing I could do, no way I could stop it. And I don't control the server. And so I learned that a kill bit might be a good idea. And someday I'll implement that because I got I think 1,000 bad reviews within 2 weeks, which is really horrible because I was the top of the marketplace for months, and now I'm not. It's kind of sad. But again, it's just, can't help it. But seriously, Killbit is a really important thing. I'm trying to write some pretty robust code for it that I'll blog at some point because I've actually talked to a lot of developers that have hit this. And you don't know if it's going to take 1 day for an update to get through Microsoft or a week. And if it fails 1 week in, you're another week out maybe. And so Killbit really seems important. And really similar, I already mentioned there's people using like a billion years ago versions of my app. I should have an update check that does the same thing. It says, what's the latest version? If it's different, let them know there's an update available. Something that the iPhone does is it'll show the number of like updated apps in like the little icon for the App Store. But for the Windows Phone Marketplace, the only way to see it is if you pin the Marketplace to your home screen. So if you look at just the app list, there's no number there. You don't know to update. And so a lot of users don't have any clue that they have updates available. And so this update check should hopefully mitigate that, where I can tell people, go and update your app, please. Enough about the bugs. I've fixed all the bugs, right? So these are some of the things that I had to build the app. I built a little photo viewer. I built some crazy grouping controls. I have a list box that if it's loading, it'll say it's loading ... or whatever message. If your data is empty, there's a message I can customize that says no items or whatever you want. I can also like fade things in. That's something I built because I felt that Listbox just wasn't quite right for my needs, so I built on top of it. I have some cool components. It's a hobby, so I can name it however I want. No boss, awesome image, and awesome scroll viewer. Yeah, and they are awesome, believe me. If you see a lot of apps, if you have like 300 things in a list, if you have 300 images and it's not a virtualized list, it'll actually load every single one of those 300 images. So one thing I've learned over here is data is really expensive in Australia. Like the 3G plans are really expensive. And so if you have 300 people, well, I'm actually just looking at the first screen. Why don't you just load the first 4 images? And so Awesome Image and Scroll Viewer is a system that I built that does this automatically. It says, what's the current view? When you stop manipulating, I'll load just the images on the screen. And I've shared this with a ton of people. There's people using it, but again, the code isn't pretty. And it's called Awesome Scroll Viewer. Like, it's not production code yet. But I hope to share that with people someday because I think that's a super important piece to what's made my app a little bit more efficient. We did work in Mango to make images even quicker. But really, why load all the images if you just need a couple? Anything else cool I did? I have a type called Witty Banter. It's almost what it sounds like. If you ever run the app, it'll say like, hi, hello, how's it going? How's lunch? And that's the Witty Banter type. Like if I did that at Microsoft, they'd be like, yeah, Jeff, you're gold plating. You should look for a new job. But in your own apps, you can do cool stuff. So I have a Witty Banter type, and I'm having it localized into all sorts of languages. So it'll be like, bonjour, whatever else. It'll be cool. But I've done stupid stuff too, and it's been fun. One of the things developers really hate is tombstoning. Who knows what tombstoning is? Who hates tombstoning? Oh, some people put their hands down. That's cool. Tombstoning as a developer is something where I think as like a person building an app, it feels like control should just tombstone themselves. Why is Microsoft making me tombstone my own properties and values? And I asked my day job self that, and I don't have a good answer either. But tombstoning is tough, and you have to write a lot of code to do it. And so if I pop open one of my pages, I've actually worked with one of the guys that used to work on Windows Phone. His name's David Pohl. And he has this cool stuff that just helps you go completely XAML-based for tombstoning. And 1024 by 768 is not good for this. So right here, I have like a watermark text box control. And down here, I have some tombstoning text. And I say that I want to tombstone the text itself. And so this little XAML code, it's code that's actually up on the web right now. And you set this little property. It looks verbose, but what it does is it automatically saves the text both on the way in and out. It means there's no code behind for this tombstoning. And it's really slick, actually. I probably could have done this even as like a style to have that set automatically. It just has saved me tons of time because every time I add a field, I just hook this up instead. It really simplifies the code behind. And I guess there's a lot of other stuff, but who cares? Metro design for geeks. I already showed you a little bit about this. 12 is the magic number. If you look at the default styles, there's the number 12 and 24 all over the place. And it just is the magic number for Metro. And a lot of times you'll see, again, things are just off by 12 pixels. And one of the biggest reasons is developers, we just drop a text block in, we set the text property, and it turns out it's 12 pixels away. In Visual Studio, of course, I don't want to modify my project. I'll do a new quick one. Yeah. So in your app, sweet, text blocks. If you want to drop a new text block in here, here's what the developer does. Silence is golden. Text block, text equals hello world. And the developer's done. All right, it says hello world. It looks like I did my job just fine. Now if I zoom in, look at that. Whoa. No data sources, of course not. We don't do that. Look at that. We are 12 pixels off. And I know a lot of us, like, you're not looking at the phone that close. You ship the app, and most people are cool with it, but I'm really picky. I yell at my friends all the time for this in their apps. But it's 12 pixels off because you just set the default. And it seems like it should just happen, but the trick is you just use the phone styles. Static resource, phone, text, normal style. And if you just saw it, it popped over 12 pixels. So phone text normal style, it gives you the Microsoft preferred font and font family, font sizing, all that exciting stuff. Developers, you just use the style and you can write good stuff. Of course, there's also phone text large style, all these other ones. Look at that, it's larger. It makes sense. If you're not using these, again, you're doing it wrong. So please try to use this and you'll be a better developer designer person. If you're ever wondering, these are on the computer actually. Go into Program Files, Microsoft SDKs, Windows Phone, whatever version you care about, Design. And down here, you have System Resources and Theme Resources. This is the actual XAML, which has phone text, normal. It has these styles in it. So this is a good reference if you want to see what it's actually doing behind the scenes. But again, this stuff it saves you time. You don't want your designers yelling at you. Hey, it's 12 pixels off. Just use the style. Seems to make sense. Of course, I don't have a designer because it's a hobby. Other things, app bar icons. There's a couple that ship with the Microsoft SDK. There's like maybe 15, but there's like, 100 in the phone. So I don't know why we didn't ship more, but this is actually something where I've pulled out my Photoshop skills and I built my own. I'm happy to share those, but it seems like hopefully the community will get together and do this a little bit better because app bar icons, they should be consistent and standard, and they're not. I found there's a ton of sites out there. There's one called the Noun Project, and these guys are open source. Noun Project. Come on, Bing. So if you go here, this is just tons of nouns, all sorts of things you can think of, maybe. Yeah, look at this. All these exciting icons. And these are like completely public domain. I found these are really helpful. You can make these into app bar icons in like 5 minutes. These guys have done a great job. I'd highly recommend that site. I've already shown you some of this, but this is, more crash reports. It's always really sad when it's like, bam, bam, bam. Just you can see people checking in the morning. And as a developer, it makes me sad, and I know that I should fix these things. But again, if I didn't have this tool, I would have no idea what kind of crashes I have. You could also have a service that stores every little unhandled exception, sends it to your web server. But then I don't get all these nice details. You'll see that, I don't know if I have an app here, but I actually respond to these people, like this person, and we actually had a conversation. We said, hey, I think this is what your problem is. Here's how to fix it or how to get around the issue. And they're like, okay, I did that. It worked. Thanks. I could have asked them, what was the repro steps? What do you think? Do you remember what you were doing when it crashed? And if it was an anonymous report, I wouldn't have that data. So that's one way that I like this email conversation instead. Wanted to share some of the marketing and promotion things. The best people out there are my users. They love to tell their friends that have Windows phones. They're like, hey, check out this app. It's pretty cool. It works great. I have a website. I think in Mango that won't matter as much, but right now there's no centralized way to have the Zune store. So I set up this pretty simple site. There's a nice big download button that takes you to Zune. But it's nice because you can go to this site if you don't have a Windows phone, if you don't have Zune. You can still learn about the app. Without this, I probably would have a lot less interest in the app because people just don't always have Zune. I found that was a big barrier. And so the media loves to link to this. If you look at Windows Phone Central, they write 1, 2, 3, 4. They write about everything. And it's because they love their users. They love when people in Windows Phone learn about things. They'll tell people when there's updates, when there's bug fixes, when there's new features. The media is a great set of guys. You just email them a zap. They'll install. They'll review it. If you're thinking of releasing a big new version, a lot of these guys are really excited to get their hands on it before anyone else. So you send them the Zap file. They'll do like a little video interview. They'll review the app. And then the day that you go public, bam, they launch their story. They get advertiser hits. They're happy. And I found that's a really good way of helping people learn about the app, because it's not like an official app. It's just one I did on the side. I also have Twitter and Facebook set up to kind of share with people, talk about bugs and discuss what's going on. And the final one that's worth talking about is the Windows Phone Marketplace. Even though I work at Microsoft, I do not get preference here. I have no idea how they decide this. I don't know if they play cards, if they have dice. I have no clue. I haven't sent anyone money, but I have been Marketplace promoted before. And it's per Marketplace region. So I guess in Australia, it's going to be different, which apps are featured versus in the US someday. And the weird thing is they don't tell you. So like my friends will be like, hey, Jeff, your app's featured. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, go to Zune and pop it open, and sure enough, there's an icon. I'm being featured. And so there's nothing you can do, apparently, to like learn when you're being featured. Just have friends. Yeah, people are laughing. We're geeks. Sometimes we have friends. Apparently the reasons, there was a talk at Mix about this, but ways to get promoted, use the Windows Phone features that are awesome. So live tiles or notifications, use Panorama, Pivot, to kind of make it look like the Windows Phone. I think in my app I did pretty well in trying to mimic the Metro experience. And because of that, I guess they decided, hey, this is a great Windows Phone app. It showcases it. And I got thousands and thousands of downloads one day just from being promoted. And you can see a little spike in your download numbers. So I think focus on design really makes a difference. And if you don't do that, you won't be featured, and then you won't have $1 million. What's next? I'm doing some work for Mango. I've decided not to release a Mango update yet. There's some stuff there where maybe you can't update the 7.0 app, and who knows. But I am working actively on new features. I'm learning a lot. It's kind of cool. I'm excited for Mango. But really, I'd want to take the last 8 minutes here and see if anyone wants to ask questions, see source, or leave. Yes?
The stack traces that you're getting emails from, it's being emailed straight from the device. Does the user have to authorize that being sent to you?
Yes. So it's actually the mail task. And so my app sends the text to the mail task. And the user has to, first of all, touch the thing saying, yes, I'd like to report the bug. And then it opens up their mail client. And it's all right there for them to see. They could delete it if they didn't feel safe with it, or they could hit back. But it's up to them because it's using the mail task. Yep. Anyone else? Yes, again.
I'm assuming there'll be some backward compatibility issues between Mango and the previous version. So how will you, I'm assuming you can't have two versions live in the marketplace at once. So how will you determine when you actually release a Mango version, or will you have to incorporate in your own compatibility?
So you can submit a Mango app whenever you want. And then the 7.0 version will still be in the marketplace for people. But I don't think I'll be able to update the 7.0 version. And so I worry a little bit because I don't control the web services. So if I got another one of those what's new bugs, I wouldn't be able to fix it. So I'm going to wait until I know that a lot of people are getting Mango. And because of the push notifications infrastructure, I actually know the version of Windows Phone that every user in my app uses. That's part of the data I have. And so I'm going to wait to see enough people using Mango to actually move to it. In terms of like side-by-side compat, I'm not too worried. I actually have a kind of crazy code thing here, but if I go into my source for the app, I have two solution files. I have a 7.0 version and a Mango version. It's 100% the same source, and so it's really easy for me to fix a bug or fix an issue, but still maintain the Mango version in the same tree. So it's a little bit of MS Build hackery I've done for that, but what it means is I don't need to worry about branching and source control and all that stuff. Any other? Yep.
Does the amount of rankings, ratings you get affect your rankings?
My understanding is the rankings in the marketplace are completely based on download numbers. So no. However, Bing does have a different number. It's like top Windows Phone 7 apps. So this list here, they do have, first of all, the downloads, but if you hit 100 top rated, these ones are all based on ratings, and they're weighted for all sorts of different things. So I'm in there still, number 21, sadly. Used to be number 1. Yeah, it's sad. But, yep.
What sort of issues are there between 7.0 and the Mango apps? I mean,
Yeah, they should just run fine. Technically, it is Silverlight 4 based that's running in Mango. However, if it's a 7.0 app, we use the Silverlight 3 parser. And if it's a 7.1 app, then we'll use the Silverlight 4 parser. So there could be some XAML issues there. The parser in Silverlight 4 is a lot better. A lot more things just work that weren't before. But there are a couple little weird syntax things that don't work. So most people will find out pretty quick if it doesn't. But shouldn't have too many issues. Yes?
Are you using a MVVM framework at all?
No, I'm not that cool. I have talked to Lauren, who does MVVM Lite, and it's good stuff. I just have decided not to. So if I do open these objects, they are proper, sort of. Yeah, laugh. I'm not getting paid for it. So if I go in here, well, yeah, it's a property change base. I've done it by hand, all that good stuff. But I'm not using a framework for that. The AGFX does help a little bit. It actually there's a single instance of any specific type. So if I'm talking about like an instance of my check-ins, there's a single instance no matter how many pages there are. And so a single property change will affect every page or every instance automatically, and that's kind of nice. But, yep. Anything else, or you're free to go? No? Well, thank you.